No team has reached 3 World Cup finals and lost every single one, except this one. The Netherlands have played in the final 3 separate times, in 3 different decades, against 3 different opponents, and walked away with absolutely nothing all 3 times. No other country in football history has that exact record. Today we're breaking down why one of the most talented footballing nations on earth has never once lifted the World Cup trophy, and by the end, you'll understand exactly what kept getting in their way. Quick basics first. The World Cup final is the last match of the entire tournament, the one that decides the actual champion out of every country competing. Reaching the final once is already a massive achievement. Most countries never get there at all. The Netherlands got there 3 times and lost 3 times. Let's break down exactly how that happened. Start with 1974, because this is where the legend begins. The Netherlands showed up at that World Cup playing a style nobody had really seen before, called total football. Here's the simple version. In most teams back then, players stuck rigidly to one position. Defenders defended. Attackers attacked. Total football threw that rulebook out. Any player could suddenly become an attacker, a defender, or a midfielder mid-game, constantly rotating positions like a chess team where every piece could suddenly move like the queen. It was chaotic for opponents to defend against because they couldn't predict who was coming at them next. The face of this team was Johan Cruyff, a player so influential that a specific move, a sudden drag-back fake that fooled defenders, is still called the Cruyff turn to this day, decades later. The Netherlands cruised to the 1974 final against West Germany. They even scored in the very first minute, before a German player had touched the ball a single time. And somehow, they still lost 2-1. Some historians argue the Dutch got so confident after that early goal that they started showboating instead of finishing the job, giving West Germany time to settle in and fight back. Confidence turned into complacency, and complacency cost them the trophy. Fast forward 4 years to 1978, and the pattern repeats almost exactly. The Netherlands reached the final again, this time against host nation Argentina. Cruyff wasn't even there. He'd controversially skipped the entire tournament for personal reasons that stayed private for years. Even without their biggest star, the Dutch still made it all the way to the final. The match went to extra time, meaning it was tied after the normal 90 minutes and needed extra playing time to decide a winner. Argentina won 3-1. 2 finals, 2 different decades, 2 losses. Here's a question worth sitting with for a second. How does a country reach back-to-back World Cup finals with genuinely one of the most skilled generations in football history and still finish empty-handed both times? It wasn't bad luck alone. Some analysts point to Dutch football's culture of players constantly debating tactics among themselves, sometimes openly disagreeing with coaches during actual tournaments. Total football gave players enormous freedom. That same freedom occasionally turned into internal chaos exactly when discipline mattered most. Then there's a 32-year gap. The Netherlands didn't reach another final until 2010. This next generation, led by players like Wesley Sneijder and Arjen Robben, arrived in South Africa playing a noticeably tougher, more physical style than the flowing total football of the 70s. They ground out results instead of dazzling crowds. They made the final again against Spain, who were playing some of the most elegant possession-based football of that entire era. The match ended scoreless after 90 minutes, then scoreless again after the first period of extra time. It came down to the very final minutes. Andres Iniesta scored for Spain in the 116th minute, just 4 minutes from a shootout. The Netherlands lost their 3rd final, 1-0. Here's the number that puts this whole story in perspective. Countries like England and Argentina have each been criticized at times for underperforming compared to their talent level. But the Netherlands hold a record nobody else wants. Most World Cup final appearances without a single win. 3 trips to the biggest match in football and 3 losses, spread across 3 completely different eras, 3 different playing styles, and 3 different generations of players. So why does this keep happening to one specific country? Some point to timing. The Netherlands has repeatedly run into legendary opposing teams at their absolute peak. West Germany in 1974, host nation Argentina in 1978, and a Spain squad in 2010 many consider one of the greatest international teams ever assembled. Others point inward, arguing Dutch football's obsession with playing beautifully sometimes gets prioritized over simply winning ugly when it matters most. Total football is gorgeous to watch. It doesn't always survive contact with a team that just wants to grind out a result. Here's the twist that makes this story even more interesting. Despite never winning, total football fundamentally changed how football is played and coached everywhere. Modern tactical ideas. Players comfortable switching positions fluidly. Sides pressing aggressively all over the pitch. All traced directly back to that 1974 Dutch team that ultimately lost. They may have never lifted the actual trophy, but their fingerprints are all over how the game looks today, including in teams that eventually won titles using ideas the Dutch introduced first. Quick recap before we finish up. The Netherlands reached the World Cup final in 1974, 1978, and 2010 and lost every single time, an unmatched record in the tournament's history. Confidence and internal disagreements cost them in the 70s. The legendary Spanish squad narrowly edged them out in 2010. Through all three losses, they still managed to reshape how football is played at every level of the sport. Here's the final thought worth remembering. Sometimes the teams that never win the trophy end up changing the sport more than the teams that do. The Netherlands never became world champions, but almost every champion since has borrowed something from the way they played. If breakdowns like this make football finally click for you, subscribe, because this channel turns the biggest stories in the sport into something anyone can actually understand.